You've heard it, so we can start. The March 14th, 2023 Liquor Board hearing is now in session. As always, the board has all meetings transcribed, which serve as minutes for the hearings. The board keeps such minutes stored electronically, and they're available to review by calling the board for an appointment. I now make a motion that the transcripts of the previous board hearing held February 14th, 2023 be accepted as the board minutes for that date, and I ask for a second. Motion is second. Those in favor say aye. Aye. The motion is carried. Turn the meeting over to Mr. Praley for an announcement.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few brief announcements tonight, everyone. At the beginning of every meeting, if you've been here before, you've heard me make these. First is that the commissioners before you are part-time public servants. They all have other outside interests. When they know they have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest, they'll recuse themselves. However, due to the number of cases that the board hears every night, it'd be impossible for them to know if there is a conflict on each and every case that's called. So when your case is called, if you believe that there is a conflict of interest, you need to raise that. The board will address it at that time and will make an ultimate determination. If not, we'll proceed forward with every matter under the assumption that there is no conflict of interest. Second, the rules of this board provide that the chairman, for the purposes of administrative and judicial economy, can have board's counsel rule on the admissibility of evidence and objections if counsel are present, and their objections as to any particular document or testimony. This assignment allows us to expedite the hearings, so sometimes rather than the chairman turning to me advising the chairman on any given objection, I'll simply make a ruling, and my ruling will be that of the board. Those are all the announcements tonight. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Inspector Wayne Harris, who can call our first case. Inspector Harris, please.
Thank you, Mr. Praley. Our first case is Champion Liquors. Thank you very much, Mr. Lyman. Anyone wishing to testify for or against, please come forward, remain standing, and raise your right hands. Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right, I'm going to ask, you can have a seat now, put your hands down. I'm going to start with the officers and ask you to identify by name and address, please.
Detective Mountcastle, Anne Arundel County Police. Detective Tom Middleton, Anne Arundel County Police.
My name is Brian Lyman, Lyman. I'm a counsel for the licensees.
Deepa Bhatt, owner of Champion Liquor.
Manit Patel, Champion Liquor.
Both of you need to say your address for the record, please.
Thank you.
Manit Patel, my address is 7957 Sunshine Court, Apartment A, Glenburnie, 21061.
2103 Basil Hall Lane, Gambles, Maryland.
Thank you. Mr. Praley?
All right, thank you. Detective Mountcastle or Middleton, whichever one of you is up first, if you could please provide a statement of facts, please.
Detective Mountcastle. Detective Mountcastle, Anne Arundel County Police. On 11/27/2022 at approximately 16:15 hours, Detective Middleton and I are working Operation Save, conducting alcohol sales compliance checks of retail businesses. We directed a confidential source, 20 years of age, subject to enter Champion Liquors at 7385 Balmernapolis Boulevard, Glenburnie, Anne Arundel County, Maryland. We observed the confidential source enter the business. The confidential source went to the store and picked out an 18-pack of Miller Lite beer and a miniature bottle of Fireball whiskey and took it to the front counter. The CS was given official Anne Arundel County funds and was able to purchase the Miller Lite beer and the Fireball whiskey from the clerk. The clerk did not ask the CS for identification. The CS exited the business and immediately turned over the alcoholic beverages to us. I know through my training, knowledge, and experience that Miller Lite beer and Fireball whiskey are alcoholic beverages. Detective Middleton and I entered the store, identified ourselves as police officers, and identified the clerk as Manit Patel with a date of birth of 12/8/90 via his Maryland driver's license. Mr. Patel advised that he did not ask for identification because he was tired. A photograph was taken of Mr. Patel and his identification. A photograph was taken of the Miller Lite beer and the Fireball whiskey and then it was subsequently destroyed. A photograph was taken of the Anne Arundel County liquor license. Mr. Patel advised that he'd been working at the store for 3 years and had the alcohol awareness training. Mr. Patel was polite and cooperative. Mr. Patel was the only employee working at the store and advised the manager was not there. A copy of this report was forwarded to the Anne Arundel County Liquor Board. This case is closed.
All right, thank you, Detective. Mr. Lyman, any questions?
You confirmed that this is about 7:20 at night, is that right?
Report states
16, 15 hours. So more like 4:15?
yes.
Okay. Sorry, I was reading the top date on this. It says November 22nd at 19:20. You see that at the very top right?
This is no. Top right says November 27th, 2022. No, 1920 hours to 007 hours.
So I was wrong on my math anyway. That would have been about 5:20, but nevertheless.
Yeah.
You said that the clerk was cooperative with you?
Yes, he was.
Okay. And I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lyman, that's it?
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
No questions.
All right, Commissioner Snoops, any questions? No questions. All right, with that, Mr. Lyman, we'll turn it over to you for mitigation.
Thank you. I think you skipped one of my steps, Mr. Praley, which is that we will admit the violation, factually speaking.
Sure, understood.
But I will be heard mitigation. The scenario here is this is the weekend after Thanksgiving. This is a Sunday evening, and the clerk advised the officers that he was tired. He'd pulled several long shifts prior to this, and Ms. Bott, who's next to me, the licensee before the commissioners, knows of the appropriate responsibility here. In fact, she was at the store helping out staffing at this time, and she ran out for about a half an hour to obtain some pain medication at the CVS pharmacy. She was gone for half an hour, and the diligent detectives snuck in, swooped in with their confidential source, and made a situation that the clerk regrets, frankly. He's been a good employee. He's worked for them for 3 years. He's alcohol certified, or the training TIPS TAMS certified. He knows the rules, and he let his guard down. He's been duly admonished by Ms. Bott, and he understands that this doesn't need to happen again. The licensees do have a ID check system in that he bypassed in order to make this sale happen at this evening. With that, I think that I need to give a little more context to sort of the situation. The proprietors here bought this store in 2017. I actually was involved in the closing. It was the late summer into fall when they took over the store in 2017. This is at a shopping center located right across from the light rail station in Glen Burnie, and there's been a decline in the clientele, and there's been a precipitous decline because the giant food store, 53,000 square feet, closed that next April or May. So they had been in the store for about 6 months. And since then, they've been reacting to the clientele and the draws. To this day, there remain significant vacancies. Apparently, the landlord has just signed an auto zone to go into that anchor store space. 53,000 square feet is still unoccupied. And the shopping center is in need of some drastic revitalization. That's not an excuse. It doesn't mean that this should have happened, but I would ask the board to kind of bear that in context of the burden that it has been to work the store and to obtain employees and pay them competitive wages for working the long hours that are required in a store like this. I do have I got this today from the landlord's website. If I could pass up that's 5 copies of the landlord's current occupancy site plan. You'll see also on there that there are several vacant units in addition to the unit directly adjacent to this particular store. And as I do often, if you take the Google tour, you can see the appearance of the shopping center over the years. As I said, this isn't an excuse, it's just the context of the situation. I believe that there's been one prior sting violation where Operation Save had a prior violation. I'm sorry, I don't have the year that happened, but I would like to make the board members aware that there was a prior underage service violation on this license within the tenure that my clients have owned it. With that, they certainly understand that serving alcohol to minors is unacceptable, both under the state code and under the board's rules and regulations. And I'd ask them if they have anything to add to go ahead and tell the board. Nothing further.
All right, Mr. Lyman, would you like this to become part of the record?
That'd be great, thank you.
Absolutely, that'll be accepted. And with that, we'll see if the board has any questions. Mr. Chairman.
No questions at the moment.
Commissioner Duffy, any questions? No questions. Commissioner Snoops? All right, Mr. Lyman, anything you want to add?
I would just remind the board that occasionally it combines counts where there's one factual violation and there are two charging counts. Obviously, you understand that that's because there are two different violations of two different regulatory regimes. Nevertheless, I think perhaps combining the counts, merging them, and issuing one fine or reprimand may be appropriate in this case.
Thank you, Mr. Lyman. Mr. Chairman.
A couple of questions. How many employees do you have?
3.
3 overall? And what is duly admonished? When you're,
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I understand that she's instructed him that he has to use the point-of-sale system in order to check the IDs going forward.
Okay.
I don't think that they have a 100% ID check policy in place, but he certainly understands that he needs to appropriately card individuals look like they're under 30 years of age.
okay. So
Is that correct?
Yeah.
you'll use that card check
Yes, sir.
on a more, were you using it
We will.
with
yeah.
this?
Yeah.
With
My
our-
understanding is he was supposed to have
He's
used it.
supposed to.
Supposed to use it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
didn't.
He didn't that day.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and impose a fine because we're looking at serving minors as a very serious situation. You did have one 6 years ago,
Yeah.
or at least not 6 years, maybe 5 years ago.
5
You
years
were
ago.
aware of that. So I'm going to pose a $400 fine per count plus court costs, and I ask for a second.
I second the motion.
The motion is seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're all excused. Thank you very much. Next case, Doc and Annie's LLC. Ashish Vodarati, member. Saral Basnet, clerk. Detective Mountcastle, 1155. Detective Middleton, number 1061.
Mr. Yu, will you waive the reading?
Yes.
Thank you.
I thank you very much. Anyone wishing to testify for or against, remain standing and raise your right hands, please. Okay, do you solemnly declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Okay, I'm going to ask you to please state your name and address for the record. We'll start with the detectives to my left.
Detective Mountcastle, Anne Arundel County Police.
Detective Tom Middleton, Anne Arundel County Police.
Your name and address, please?
Yes.
Ashish Bandari, 905 Mark Road, Brooklyn, Maryland.
Okay, Mr. Yu.
JU representing the licensee, Mr. Bandari.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fraley.
All right, thank you, Inspector Harris. Detective Middleton, I'm assuming this one's you. Oh, Mountcastle again. Okay, go right ahead.
Detective Mountcastle, Anne Arundel County Police. On 11/27/2022 at approximately 15:45 hours, Detective Middleton and I were working Operation Save, conducting alcohol sales compliance checks at retail businesses. We directed a confidential source, 20 years of age, subject to enter Doc and Annie's Liquors, located at 5920 Ritchie Highway, Brooklyn, Anne Arundel County, Maryland. We observed the confidential source enter the business. The confidential source went to the store and picked out an 18-pack of Bud Light beer and took it to the front counter. The confidential source was given official Anne Arundel County funds and was able to purchase the Bud Light beer from the clerk. The clerk did not ask the confidential source for identification. The confidential source exited the business, immediately turned over the alcohol beverage to us. I know through my training, knowledge, and experience that Bud Light beer is an alcoholic beverage. Detective Middleton and I entered the store, identified ourselves as police officers, and identified the clerk as Ram Padel, date of birth of 8/26/79. Mr. Padel advised that he did not ask for identification because he was distracted watching a soccer game on television. A photograph was taken of Mr. Padel and the Anne Arundel County liquor license. A photograph was taken of the Bud Light beer and it was destroyed. Mr. Padel advised that he had been working at the store for 3 months and had not had the alcohol awareness training. Mr. Padel was polite and cooperative. He advised the store manager was not on location and that he was the only employee in the store. A copy of this report was forwarded to the Anne Arundel County Liquor Board. This case is closed.
All right, thank you, Detective. Mr. Yu, do you have any questions? for the
Just
detective?
one question. I missed the date. Do you know, did you say it happened in December, which date?
It was 11/27,
November
November
27th?
27th.
Something's not right.
What's the case number?
It says December
Oh.
18th. Might be.
Might be the wrong report.
Did we do the wrong one?
Yes. It was the wrong report. All right, let me do this again. Take
Okay.
two. On 12/18/2022, at approximately 16:30 hours, Detective Middleton and I were working Operation Save, conducting alcohol sales compliance checks of retail businesses. We directed a confidential source, 20 years of age subject, to enter Doc and Annie's Liquors, located at 5920 Ritchie Highway, Brooklyn, Anne Arundel County, Maryland. We observed the confidential source enter the business. The confidential source went to the store and picked out the 18-pack of Bud Light beer and took it to the front counter. The confidential source was given official Anne Arundel County funds and was able to purchase the Bud Light beer from the clerk. The clerk did not ask the confidential source for identification. The confidential source exited the business, immediately turned over the alcoholic beverages to us. I know through my training and I experience the Bud Light beer is an alcoholic beverage. Detective Middleton and I entered the store, identified ourselves as police officers, and identified the clerk as Sorrel Bassett, date of birth of 7/27/98. Bassett advised that he doesn't normally work in the store and was just filling in for the family-owned business. Mr. Bassett advised that he was the only employee on location and the manager had left the store approximately an hour prior to our arrival. Detective Middleton asked if there was anyone else on location that was in the liquor store. Mr. Bassett replied no. A photograph was taken of Mr. Bassett and the Anne Arundel County liquor license. A photo was taken of the Bud Light beer, and then it was destroyed. Mr. Bassett advised he has not had the alcohol awareness training. Mr. Bassett was polite and cooperative. A copy of this report was forwarded to Anne Arundel County Anne Arundel County Liquor Board. This case is closed. Sorry for that.
No, not a problem, Mr. Yu. We'll give you another chance. Go ahead. Any
Thank you.
questions you have on this one?
No questions. It's
Okay.
fine.
That's our.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Snoops, any questions? No questions. All right, Mr. Yu, we'll turn it over to you. You can present your client's case by way of proffered testimony or a combination of both.
A combination of both.
Okay, sure.
I asked Mr. Bandari as to why Mr. Bassett did not check the ID, and what he told Mr. Bandari is that he thought that the gentleman who came in, the compliance check gentleman, that person was someone he knew, that someone a regular customer. So he misidentified the individual, and he did not ask for ID. Other than that, whatever other excuses he may have come up with, it's not an excuse. Mr. Bandari completely understands that. So in light of this incident, what Mr. Bandari did was he put signs up everywhere to make sure that the employees are reminded, and not only that, the customers know that the ID should be checked. And most importantly, a lot of the stores have an ID scanner that's independent of the point of sale system. So what Mr. Bandari did was he incorporated the program into the POS system itself, so that every time a sale is made, the ID checking is mandated. You cannot, it's not a separate thing. Like the prior gentleman said, even though ID scanner is there, if it's not used, it's not used. So what he did was he incorporated that program into the POS system, so that whenever registers run, an ID has to be scanned before sale could go further. So that's what he did. It took him quite a bit of money to do that, but he felt that with 2 employees and part-time employees, despite of how much he tell the employees, if they feel like not scanning the ID or checking the ID, it's really difficult to enforce. So he incorporated that system into the POS. I think that is the best way to go. So if I may submit these documents for your review, and also he made sure that all the employees are certified now. Had all 2 part-time and full-time employees are certified, and Mr. Bandari is certified. Mr. Bandari, is there anything you'd like to say?
No, that's all.
All right, Mr. Yu, we'll accept these documents. They'll become part of the official record as supplementary or supplemental exhibits. We'll see if the board has any questions. Mr. Chairman, any questions?
Yeah, when was this system set up?
Immediately after this incident occurred.
Okay. Okay, so it was set up actually after the second incident, the
Yes.
December 18th?
Yes, that's correct.
'Cause
I
you
had a personal situation. I just had a baby, so that's why, I mean, that's a personal excuse, but that was the reason I was not at the site. So because of that, I was not able to handle certain things. But immediately after the second incident, I took no chances and then implemented these.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Snoops, do you have any questions? No questions. All right, Mr. Yu, anything you want to add?
No. The third violation, which is the failure to put the manager's application in with the board, he implemented that as soon as this citation has been issued. So the how many managers?
Now 6.
I'm
Six
sorry.
managers.
So all the managers are with the board.
All the managers are what?
The managers' applications have been submitted to the board.
Okay.
So they're on the
approved.
record. Yeah.
Okay.
Any additional questions from the board?
I have none.
All right, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I'm going to go ahead in lieu of the fact that it looks like within a pretty 3-week period, unfortunately, you'd sold to a minor, which is pretty serious. So I'm going to impose a fine, and that fine is going to be $500 per count, plus court costs. And I ask for a second.
I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You're all excused.
Thank you.
Next case, Lou's Stop Shop, Madison and Sons, Inc. Nancy L. Madison, President. Jesse L. Madison, Secretary Treasurer. Brandon McKinney, Normandan, Clerk. Detective Middleton, number 1061, Detective Sapita, number 1239, Detective Mountcastle, number 1155. The inspector is Mark Mucklebauer. This is a Class A beer, wine, and liquor license with Sunday privileges. 1208 Mayo Road, Mayo, Maryland, 21106. There's no restrictions on this license. There are 2 violations: violation of the rules and regulations of the Board of License Commissioners for Anne Arundel County, Chapter 4, Section 4.01, little a, minors. RE, Anne Arundel County Police Department Report 22-746463 by Detective Middleton, number 1061, and Detective Mountcastle, number 1155, and Detective Sapita, number 1239. Incident dated December 29th, 2022. Second violation is a violation of the Alcoholic Beverages 1, Titles 1 through 12, Annotated Code of Maryland, Title 6, Section 6-304, selling or providing alcoholic beverage to an individual under the age of 21 years. RE, Anne Arundel County Police Report 22746463 by Detective Middleton, number 1061, Detective Sapita, number 1239, and Detective Mountcastle, 1155. Incident dated December 29th, 2022. Okay. Everybody raise your right hands, please. Do you solemnly declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Okay, please have a seat. I'm going to ask for your name and addresses. We'll start with the detectives to my left and work down the table.
Detective Mountcastle, Anne Arundel County Police.
Detective Middleton, Anne Arundel County Police.
Detective Charles Cepeda, Anne Arundel County Police.
Brandon McKinney, 3840 Twin Oak Drive, Edgewater, Maryland, 21037.
Jesse Madison. My address is different than on the paper. Give the correct address now. 1027 Friendship Lane, West River, Maryland, 20778.
Nancy Madison, 1208 Mayo Road, Mayo, Maryland, 21106.
All right, thank you all. Detective, if you could please provide a statement of facts.
Thank you. Good
Thanks,
evening,
Mayor.
Council. On December 29th, 2022, at approximately 8 o'clock p.m., Detective Mountcastle, Detective Middleton, and myself were working Operation SAVE, Selective Alcohol Violation Enforcement, and Alcohol Sale Compliance Checks of retail businesses. We directed a confidential source, 20 years of age, subject to enter the establishment, which is identified as Lou's Stop and Shop, located at 1208 Central Avenue, Mayo Road, Anne Arundel County, Maryland. The confidential source's identification and age was verified prior to entering. We observed the confidential source enter the business. The confidential source went to the store and picked out a 18-pack of Mineral Light beer and took it to the front counter. The confidential source was given official Anne Arundel County funds and was able to purchase the Mineral Light beer from the clerk. The clerk did not ask the confidential source for identification. The confidential source exited the business and immediately turned over the alcoholic beverages to myself and the other detectives. We know through our training, knowledge, and experience that Mineral Light beer is an alcoholic beverage. Detective Mountcastle, Detective Middleton, and myself then entered the establishment, identified ourselves as police officers, and then identified the clerk as Brandon McKinney Norman Linden. I hope I'm saying it correctly.
Normandin.
Sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
Date of birth of 8/12/1997, who was seated to my left. Mr. Brandon advised that he has had alcohol awareness training. A photograph was taken of Mr. Brandon and the alcohol county liquor license, which was properly displayed. A photograph of the alcoholic beverages was taken and then later destroyed. Mr. Brandon was polite and cooperative during the whole event. He also stated that I thought I recognized him, who was identified as the CI, as a regular customer. He stated that to myself and Detective Middleton upon entering the establishment. The store manager was on scene and identified as Jesse Madison, date of birth of 7/18/1980, who was also seated at my left. A copy of this report was forwarded to the Anne Arundel County Liquor Board, and this case is closed.
All right, thank you, Detective. Now, for the licensees, this is your opportunity to ask any questions of Detective Cepeda based on his reading of the report. You're going to have the opportunity to present your case in mitigation at a later time. So are there any questions of the detective based on that reading?
No, sir.
Okay. Ma'am, any questions? No. Okay. Let's see if the board has any questions. Mr. Chairman?
No questions.
Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Snoops? All right, well, at this point, we will turn the case over to the licensees, Mr. Madison and Ms. Madison. You can present your case to the board in mitigation, and the board will take that into account, but we'll turn the floor over to you at this time, okay?
Yes. I would like to say that Brandon does a good job for us, and our work culture does take this very serious. And our employee retention spans from 2010, 15 up to 4 years for Brandon himself. And we hope that this is an isolated incident and apologize, and will furthermore be diligent with the regulations.
Thank you. Ma'am, do you have anything you want to add? Okay. Mr. Chairman, any questions?
How many employees do you have?
7.
7 overall?
Yes.
And what is your policy again for checking?
We card people. This was a one-time mistake. I believe that Brandon made, thinking that was a familiar customer. We have the manual of IDs from different states because we have travelers come through. We have a infrared light to see if there's holograms on the IDs if we think that they're fraudulent. So we have steps in place in our establishment to verify IDs and make sure they're accurate.
Okay. And how long have you been working at the store?
It would have been 4 years in February.
It would have been, or
sorry,
you're still
4
there?
years in February.
Okay.
Last year.
No other questions. Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Snoops?
My only question, you don't have an ID scanner, but you have the infrared light to look for,
Yes.
is that correct? Okay.
If I may, we don't have a point of sale system as of yet.
Are there plans to get one?
Yes.
All right, do you all have anything you'd like to add before we turn it over to the board for deliberation and decision?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at your overall record, and this is your first fine in almost 20 years. So
Thank you.
you've been doing a fairly decent job in doing that. However, I'm going to go ahead and fine $250 per count plus court costs for that incident. And I ask for a second.
I second the motion, 250 per count.
That is seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion's carried. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. You're all excused. Next case, Marketplace Wine and Spirits, Pasadena Marketplace LLC. Ranjat Debnath, Managing Member. Michael Miser, Clerk. Indra Ranablat, Manager. Detective Middleton, number 1061. Detective Mountcastle, number 1155. Inspector is Scott Montaigne. This is a Class A beer, wine, and liquor license with Sunday privileges, located at 354 Mountain Road, Suite 1, Pasadena, Maryland. There is a restriction on this license dated 5/1/2008. All employees must be certified in an alcohol awareness program, and the manager's agreement must be on file in the absence of the licensees at all times. Violations are of the rules, regulations of the Board of License Commissioners, Anne Arundel County, Chapter 4, Section 4.01, little a minors, RE, Anne Arundel County Police Report 23-701-741 by Detective Middleton, number 1061, Detective Mountcastle, number 1155. The incident dated January 14th, 2023. Violation of the Alcoholic Beverage 1, Titles 1 through 12, Annotated Code of Maryland, Title 6, Section 6, -304, selling or providing alcoholic beverages to an individual under the age of 21 years. RE, Detective Anne Arundel County Police Report 23-701-741 by Detective Middleton, number 1061, Detective Mountcastle, 1155. The incident dated January 14th, 2023. Everyone wishing to testify, please raise your right hands. Do you solemnly declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, please have a seat. We'll start with the detectives to my left, and you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Detective Mountcastle, Anne Arundel County Police.
Detective Tom Middleton, Anne Arundel County Police.
Mike Miser, 332 Rambling Ridge Court, Pasadena, Maryland, 21122. You got it, just your name and address.
Ranjit Debna, 354 Mountain Road, Pasadena, Maryland, 21122.
Indra Ranawat. My address is 96 Mary Lane, apartment 301, Glenmurray, Maryland, 21069.
All right, thank you all. Detective, if you could provide us with a statement of facts for this case, please.
Detective Mountcastle, Anne Arundel County. On 1/14/2023 at approximately 16:30 hours, Detective Middleton and I were working Operation Save, conducting alcohol sales compliance checks of retail businesses. We directed a confidential source, 20 years of age subject, to enter Pasadena Marketplace Wine and Spirits located at 354 Mountain Road, Suite 1, Pasadena, Anne Arundel County, Maryland. We observed the confidential source entered the business. The confidential source went to the store and picked out an 18-pack of Bud Light beer and took it to the front counter. The confidential source was given official Anne Arundel County funds as was able to purchase the Bud Light beer from the clerk. The clerk did not ask the confidential source for identification. The confidential source exited the business and immediately turned over the alcoholic beverages to us. I know through my training, knowledge, experience that Bud Light beer is an alcoholic beverage. Detective Middleton and I entered the store, identified ourselves as police officers, and identified the clerk as Michael Miser, date of birth 6/6/63. Mr. Miser advised that he was helping out the owner and was the only employee working at the store. Mr. Miser advised that he had been working at the store for 4 weeks and has not had the alcohol awareness training. Mr. advised the owner, Babu, was at the hospital with his mother. He advised that he was a customer and knew the owner's mother was sick in the hospital the last few weeks. He advised he started to work there at the store to help out. Detective Middleton asked Mr. Miser if he was on the manager agreement from the liquor board, and he answered no. Approximately 15 minutes later, another employee entered the store. This employee was identified as Indra Rabahat, Ranabhat, who advised that he was on the manager agreement. The store had an ID scanner at the point of sale. I witnessed it work when a female patron came in the store while we were there. The register voice asked the clerk to check the ID. The clerk scanned the ID and allowed the sale. Mr. Miser advised that he bypassed the ID scanner when he made the sale to the confidential source. A photograph was taken of Mr. Miser and the Anne Arundel County liquor license. A photograph was taken of the Bud Light beer, and then it was destroyed. A copy of this report was forwarded to the Anne Arundel County Liquor Board. This case is closed.
All right, thank you, Detective. Now, this is the, licensee's opportunity to ask the detective any questions that they may have based on the statement of facts. Again, like the last case that you just saw, you'll have the opportunity to present your case in mitigation afterwards. But if you have any questions for the detective based on the statement of facts, now's the time to go ahead and ask them.
No questions.
No questions? Okay. Mr. Chairman, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Stoops, do you have any questions?
No questions.
All right, well, now we will turn it over to the licensees, and now's your opportunity to present your case by way of mitigation. Anything you want the board to know about, now's your opportunity to present, okay?
I just want to say that it was absolutely my fault. I made a mistake. I've known the owner of this store for close to 10 years. I've been a customer and a friend. His mom has got a lot of stuff going on. She's been in and out of the hospital, and it's really just dragging him away from the location. So I offered as a friend to come in and help him out. And obviously I didn't help him out very much here, that's for sure. But I made a mistake. The phone rang. I was on the phone. It was a couple people there. I'm not a liquor store employee, obviously. I was just trying to help the man out, and I didn't card this gentleman by mistake, and it was my fault. I am going to go get the training, the liquor board training, in case I do need to help him out ever again in the future, because I still think he's got a lot of stuff going on with both his mom and his daughter. And everybody gets carded. That's just the way I am from now on. Everybody gets carded.
All right, thank you. Is there anything else either of the licensees would like to add?
Yes, Your Honor. So, yeah, that was the incident that Mr. Mike was there for emergency help, and I was out of the store for lunch break, and when I came back, the incident happened. Like the officer detective says that I was there after 15 minutes of the incident. I happened to went outside for the lunch, and he was there for help. So as of now, we always check the ID all the time, and we have a scanner on the, we have a reminder on the screen too for if we sell ring of the alcohol, and we have a scanner to make sure the ID is valid too, and we have all the valid sign on the doors and all the registers, and we make sure we check all the customers' ID before we sell it, and we have been doing. And we're trying our best. We have done all these years our best, and we got a letter too that we have been checking all the customers. So in the future, he'll be trained, and we'll do our best. We'll check ID all the time.
Okay, thank you. Just give the chairman a minute to take a look at this letter that you brought up.
No, that's what it is. I don't have any.
Yeah, it's a copy of one of the save operations in the past that you had passed, fortunately. So we congratulate you when you pass those tests.
Yeah, we do our best. He was there for
However,
emergency help, but yes, we'll
when you don't pass, it's
yes.
a very serious situation. Now, how long have you worked there?
I've only been there like 2 months,
2
and
months.
I won't be there much longer. I was just trying to help him out
Okay.
while he's got a lot going on.
Okay, now, the police said that there was somebody behind you, and you scanned the person, but didn't scan this person?
Yes. There's a young lady that walked in, I think, right after the gentleman, and she just looked extremely young. And like I said, I got off the phone, and it was my fault. I thought this kid looked like he was 35 years old, to be honest with you. You know, and then I just didn't card him. It was out of hurrying, I guess. You know, there was a couple people in line. So it was definitely my fault.
Okay, no other questions?
Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions?
Yes, I just have one question in reference to, have you established a time for individuals that's employed for alcohol awareness training?
He's working on it, and he's trying to make an appointment.
Yeah. Well, the
But
next
have
available
you
place.
established a time, 30 days, 60 days, or whatever, for employees to receive training in alcohol?
He said within 30 days.
30 days.
Okay, thank you. I have no other question.
All right, Commissioner Snoops, do you have any questions? All right, is there anything you all would like to add?
No, thanks. No.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'm gonna basically impose a fine in line with our guidelines, and that's $350 a count plus court costs, and I ask for a second.
I second.
The motion is seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, everybody's excused, thank you. Next case, Old Solomon's Wine and Spirits, Kabir Corporation.
We'll waive reading.
Thank you, Mr. Lyman.
Thank you, Mr. Lyman. Anyone wishing to testify for or against, please come forward, raise your right hand. Remain standing. Hey, sir, raise your right hand. Okay. Do you solemnly declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, please have a seat. All right, would you start with the detective to my left? Would you please state your name and address for the record?
Detective Mountcastle, Anne Arundel County Police Department.
Detective Tom Middleton, Anne Arundel County Police Department.
My name is Brian Lyman, Lyman. I'm counsel for the licensees.
My name is Nimish Kumar Patel, 2414 Delbrook Court, Gambrills, Maryland, owner of the Old Solomon Wine and Spirit.
My name is Shailesh Patel, 915 Estam Court, Crofton, MD.
My name is Nishan Patel. I am 2114.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Prehl.
Detective, if you could provide us with a statement of fact for this case, please.
Good evening, Board. Detective Middleton, this incident was December 3rd, of 2022. It was approximately 6:45 p.m. in the evening time. Detective Mountcastle and I were working Operation Save, conducting alcohol sales compliance checks of retail businesses. We directed a confidential source, 20 years of age, who we verified the age through Maryland Motor Vehicles. The CS entered the Old Solomon's Wine and Spirits at 3070 Solomon's Island Road in Edgewater here in Anne Arundel County, Maryland. We observed the confidential source enter the business. The CS went into the store, picked out an 18-pack of Miller Lite beer and a miniature bottle of Fireball whiskey and took it to the front counter. The CS was given official Anne Arundel County funds, was able to purchase the Miller Lite beer and the Fireball whiskey from the clerk. The clerk did not ask the CS for identification. The CS exited the business, immediately turned over the alcoholic beverages to us outside. I know through my training, knowledge, and experience that Miller Lite beer and Fireball whiskey are indeed alcoholic beverages. Detective Mountcastle and I entered the store, identified ourselves as police officers, and advised the clerk of the underage sale. The clerk, who was later identified as Mr. Shailesh Patel, refused to give any identification and refused to cooperate. Another clerk that was in the business was later identified as Mr. Nishant Patel, refused also to give identification and refused to assist. Both clerks just stood in the store and stared at us, not willing to answer any questions. Detective Mountcastle then walked over to the front door and locked the front door. At this time, Nishant Patel got on the phone, called someone who he identified as the owner of the business. There wasn't a manager working in the store or any other employees inside the store. The subject on the phone advised both clerks to produce identification to us. At that time, Mr. Nishant had a Maryland driver's license and Mr. Shailesh had a picture of his passport on his cell phone. Photographs were taken of both of their identifications. Photograph was taken of the Miller Lite beer and of the Fireball whiskey, which was subsequently destroyed. Photograph was taken of the Anne Arundel County liquor license, and then a copy of this report was forwarded to the liquor board. That would be our state's case.
All right. Thank you, Detective. Mr. Lyman, any questions?
Yeah, I have a few. Could you, or do you have proof of the confidential source's age?
Yes.
May I review that? Thank you. You stated, do you remember what day of the week this December 3rd was?
No, I do not.
Okay, would it surprise you if I told you it was a Saturday night? Does that seem like it could be correct?
Yes.
Okay. How long was the total visit by you and Detective Mountcastle inside the store?
Probably 20 minutes.
Okay, and in those 20 minutes, you were able to get both clerks to show you their ID, and you talked to an individual that attested to be the owner of the store, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you have anything to do with the charging of these counts? We're facing 4 counts tonight. Can you tell me if you're involved in that at all?
Well, if it's based off our report, I guess that's my involvement.
Okay. Do you have anything to add about the cooperation count that's been added besides what was in your report?
Well, we've been doing this, or I could attest, I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and I can count on my one hand the number of times that we've had clerks during these operations refuse to give us any identification, refuse to talk to us when we, tell them who we are, show them our identifications, our badges, we have radios, we have guns on our side, and they just sit there and stare at you. So that would be what I would consider uncooperative.
Okay. Would it surprise you if I told you that the gentleman who made the sale is not fluent in English? Mr. Salish Patel?
Would it be?
Is that surprising to you?
No, I mean.
Okay.
So
you would agree with me that there might be a language barrier issue with that particular clerk, correct?
Sure, there could be a language barrier, yes.
Okay. And do you know, are you a representative of the board? Of the liquor board?
No.
Okay, so it's your testimony that you're not a representative of the board, correct?
Meaning I do not work for the liquor board. Correct.
You're a peace officer, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and you're employed by the Anne Arundel County Police, right?
Correct.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Duffy?
No questions.
Commissioner Snoops, any questions? All right, Mr. Lyman, we'll turn it over to you to present your client's case by way of proffer, testimony, or combination of both.
Thank you. We'll be admitting the first and the third violation, or at least the facts that lead to the first and the third violations. That would be the service of the underage person and the fact that there was not a manager on duty and at the store on this evening, this Saturday night in December. And I'd like to be heard in sort of mitigation or explanation of the occurrences. Nick Patel, as I know him, is a licensee before the board. He's actually been the main owner of this store since all the way back in 2004. Just recently, we appeared before the board to put him in as the sole licensee when the prior licensee, Mr. Marks, actually passed away, and we needed to substitute. And I was happy to report at that time that Mr. Patel had, obtained all of the necessary qualifications to hold a license before the board. He screwed up here as the licensee, and that's why we're admitting the first violation and the third violation. He now knows and understands that he has to have a management on file with the board, or himself needs to be at the store for any time the doors are unlocked. I think that was a misunderstanding, and candidly, when we met to go over and prepare for tonight, I wasn't convinced that he entirely understood that requirement, which is in part my failing when I gave him or got him this license from the board. He should have understood that more fully. Nevertheless, there was not a manager on site. Mr. Patel himself was out of town. He is on vacation, but he was available by telephone. After a brief discussion with the clerks who called him when the officers were in the store, he convinced them that they did need to cooperate immediately. What you've heard is that within roughly 20 total minutes of the officers being in the store, they were able to obtain the necessary information from the clerks to write and prepare the appropriate report. As far as the service incident goes, I understand that Shalish Patel is working primarily as a stock clerk. In this case, the main clerk who should have been running the register is Nishant Patel. He is fluent in English. He's all the way down at the left. And he stepped away from the register to use the bathroom. That's the time when the confidential source came in, and he asked his associate to cover the register. And he screwed up. He's supposed to ask for ID of anybody who's under 30 years old, who looks like they're under 30 years old, and he didn't ask for the ID, and he made the sale. And that's a mistake, and that's something that your licensee and the clerks are here to answer for tonight. You heard a preview of my defense on the fourth count, which is It's a pretty technical reading of the board's rules, but I'll read it for you. They're charged under 3.02, cooperation. A, licensees shall cooperate with representatives of the board whenever any such person or persons are on official business. The key phrase, and I asked the detectives themselves about this, is whether they are representatives of the board. And they are not representatives of the board, as you heard the detective testify. They're employed by Anne Arundel County Police. If the board's rules need amendment, I would suggest that that's appropriate for the board to do. However, this violation I don't think is charged correctly because the representatives of the board were not on the scene this evening, and they were fully cooperative with the police officers in the end, despite what the report says about the cooperation. Fundamentally, my clients know they're here to answer for a mistake. The clerks have been admonished. Neither of them are going to be terminated, but I do believe that they have had their hours adjusted as a result of this, and that they've lost some financial remuneration as a result. I asked Mr. Patel if you have anything further to add, or if I've left anything out of my presentation. Could you explain it now? He has nothing further to add. I would ask the board if you have any questions. Now's the time. We're more than happy to attempt to address them.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lyman. Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. So the two clerks are sitting on either side of the licensee. So when
No, this is Mr. Patel. This is the licensee. Nick
okay,
Patel's
the
right here.
licensee, two gentlemen to his.
This is Salesh, is that right? And that's Nishat.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I was just curious as how this unfolded when the confidential source took the goods out, the cops came in, both of you refused, or at least it started to refuse to cooperate. And I think that's maybe where the cooperation comes, and we'll deal with that in a minute there, Mr. Lyman, but that's what I'm curious about. What?
Okay, sir. Actually, we not refuse that one. Okay. He asked about him first, and okay. So I think so he can't understand English so. I think so he refused first, and then after he asked about me. So I said I not do anything. So he said okay, just give me ID. So I show him the ID mine. But okay, I think so. I think he asked about him ID. But okay, right now so I guess he's not ID for available for that guy or him.
Okay. All right. No other questions.
Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Snoops, any questions?
No questions.
Hold on one second. Sorry for the delay there. Mr. Lyman, anything you want to add?
I just add that I believe this may be the third violation, and I apologize, I've not been to the board to check that. I did ask Mr. Patel to pull out his records, and we found 2 prior violations for this establishment while it's been owned by Kabir Corporation since 2004. And I believe that that's an accurate representation of the history here. My client is not a repeat offender by any stretch. There's been a significant time since these violations. I think there was one in 2005, and the prior one I think might have also been in 2004, way back. So I just ask that the board consider that in addition to my legalistic argument about the actual terminology of the board's actual Rule 3.02A. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lyman. Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I'm good. No questions.
All right. Does anybody have anything else they want to add before we turn it over for a vote?
No.
Okay, and yeah, the license has been for 19 years, so that's pretty good record. The last issue was back in 2008, I believe it was, on our record. So I'm going to go ahead and, in this case, impose a fine on 2 counts. And again, it's using our beginning guidelines of $350 per count plus court costs. I'm going to take the cooperation count at this point. You do have a fair argument there, and that might be another time to take care of that, but I'm going to drop it, okay, in this case. And I ask for a second.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You're
Thank
all
you.
dismissed. Next case, Staples Corner Liquors. Staples Corner Liquors LLC.
We'll waive reading.
Thank you. All right, anyone wishing to testify, please come forward, stand up, raise your right hand, please. Okay. Do you solemnly declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Okay, please have a seat. State your name and addresses for the record. I'll start with the detectives.
Detective Mountcastle, Anne Arundel County Police.
Detective Tom Middleton, Anne Arundel County Police Department.
Again, my name is Brian, last name Lyman, Lyman, on behalf of the licensee.
JT Bavsar, 2306 Thornbridge Court, Crofton, Maryland.
39, my name is Nisha, 3900 Amin Corner, Bowie.
All right, thank you. Detective, if you could provide us for a statement of facts.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Again, this incident was January 9th of 2023, and it was approximately 10:20 a.m. in the morning. Detective Mountcastle and myself were working Operation Save, conducting alcohol sales compliance checks to retail businesses. We directed the confidential source, who we had identified through Maryland MVA records, being 20 years of age, to enter the Staples Corner Liquors at 1334 Defense Highway, Suite A, as in Adam and Gambrels, in Arundel County, Maryland. We observed the confidential source enter the business. The CS went into the store, picked out an 18-pack of Bud Light beer, took it to the front counter. CS was given official Anne Arundel County funds, was able to purchase the Bud Light beer from the clerk. The clerk did not ask for identification. The CS exited the business, immediately turned over the alcoholic beverages to us. We know through our training, knowledge, and experience that Bud Light beer is an alcoholic beverage. Detective Mountcastle and myself entered the store. We identified ourselves as police officers and identified the clerk as Nisha Bavsar, July 4th of 1971. Nisha advised that she had just opened the store and was the only employee working. Nisha advised that she has been working at the store for 3 months and was confused when asked whether or not she had the alcohol awareness training. A photograph was taken of Nisha and the Anne Arundel County liquor license. A photograph was taken of the Bud Light beer, and it was subsequently destroyed. And a copy of this report was forwarded to the Anne Arundel County Liquor Board. That would be our case.
All right, thank you, Detective. Mr. Lyman, any questions?
Thank you. Detective, was Ms. Bobsar cooperative?
Yes, she was polite and cooperative.
Okay. Do you recall this particular incident that she was outside sweeping?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And she actually had to follow in the confidential source in order to make the sale. Is that
That's
correct?
Yep.
Okay. How long did this interaction take, approximately?
4 minutes.
Okay. No other questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lyman. Mr. Chairman, any questions? Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Snoops? All right, Mr. Lyman, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'll spare the board all of that I read in the 74 pages that I read to prepare for tonight, because it was not been long since we've been back on this particular establishment. That's something I'm cognizant of. Ms. Bobsar, your licensee, is seated next to me, and she's cognizant of that also. And it's a problem. They know it's a problem, and this is a mistake that should not have happened. We don't have a good excuse other than Ms. Bobsar, the licensee, was due to give birth to her second child that week, the week of January 8th. This is right after the holidays, and the clerk in question is actually her mother. And she was attempting to help out by opening the store in the morning to be relieved later in the day. As I said, it's a mistake that occurred. It should not have occurred. Upon my advice, the store has instituted a 100% ID check, and I've got an exhibit to pass up, if I may. Thank you, Eddie. That's just a photograph that was taken, I believe, within the last 3 or 4 days of the 100% ID check sign that's up on the front door. All the staff and all the clerks have been instructed that they are to check every single ID of every single customer, and that customers ought to be informed when they walk in the store, if they don't have ID, that they can only buy non-alcohol or non-tobacco products. My clients are trying to make an effort to make sure that this does not happen again. They're cognizant. The Bavsar family as a whole has been in front of this board before under prior violations. We were facing 9 counts in July. The board found against us on 3 counts, and here we are tonight, we're facing 2 additional counts. These arise out of the same incident. It's not the same exact problem that occurred before, where we had an underage person working in the store. But again, this is a family business, and this is all arising out of these family relationships and what I can just describe as the realities of life. So with that said, I'll ask Jati, Bavsar, do you have anything else to add to the presentation?
Yeah, I just want to add that we, of course, we've done the 100% ID policy and also installed a verification system onto our register. So that's just another step that the clerk would have to take before they make a sale. And also because of my pregnancy, I wasn't able to be there, and I was just working mostly evening hours when it was busy. But now I do intend, now that I've had my child, I do intend to be there a lot more to make sure that these incidents don't happen again. That's all.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, any questions? No questions. Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
No question.
Commissioner Snoops? All right, Mr. Lyman, anything you want to add?
Nothing further.
Okay. Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, this is kind of hard for me at this point. We're dealing with family. We've had issues with the family over the last several months, and you know, it's unfortunate, and I'm sorry that happens. But selling to a minor is a very serious offense, and I'm going to go ahead and impose a fine, $500 per count, and court costs. And I ask for a second.
I second the motion.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion's carried. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You're all dismissed. I'm going to turn the case over to Mr. Aronson for the next. Oh, okay. Thanks. It's all right. The next case is Dietrich's Tavern. Dietrich's Tavern Incorporated, Sandeep.
We'll waive reading.
Thank you very much.
You might get to do a little more talking.
With that being said, anyone wishing to testify for or against, please come forward. Remain standing, raise your right hands, please. And that'll be me too. I do.
Sarandeep Sarkaria.
Go ahead.
Sarandeep Sarkaria, 8502 Calvert's Mill Way, Gainesville, Virginia, 20155.
Hold on. Yeah, you guys have to press the.
Karamjit Kalon, 9320 Paul Drive, Manassas Park, Virginia, 20111.
Okay, Chief Inspector Wayne Harris, Anne Arundel County Liquor Board, 2011 D, Commerce Park Drive, Annapolis, Maryland.
And my name is Brian Lyman, Lyman, on behalf of the licensees.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lyman. Inspector Harris, if you could provide us with a statement of facts, please.
Yes, sir. On January 23rd, 2023, at about 7:15 p.m., this inspector went to Dietrich's Tavern at the above address to check on the activity as a Class D license. Upon my arrival, I noticed the outside entrance into the bar was locked. I then entered in the building using the package goods store, but went immediately into the bar area. As I entered the bar area, I heard a voice from the package goods side saying that the bar was closed. I responded by asking if the bar was open for business, as I wanted to get a drink. A man appeared from the packaged goods side, later identified as Khawaja Muhammad Farham, telling me that the bar had been closed for drinks. I then identified myself and asked for a licensee or a manager who appeared on a management agreement. He responded by saying that there was no licensee there and that he was a new employee, and he showed me the license hanging behind him on the bar. I found a management agreement dated 7/27/22 with 5 names on it. I asked Mr. Farham if he was on that document, and he said no. I then asked him to try to reach out to any of the licensees, the 3 licensees, and he said the 2 were out of town and he would try to reach the 3rd. After several attempts, he was not able to reach anyone. I gave Mr. Farham one of my business cards and explained to him that I would return the next day and speak to the licensee, and also issued a written violation for several infractions. I then went on to explain that he needed to tell the licensees that they had to either tell either of the licensees or registered managers on site anytime that they are open for business, that the bar had to be open as a tavern. And during my discussion with Mr. Parham, he disclosed that the bar had been closed for business since he was employed there, which was approximately 4 months. I planned on calling a licensee so that they could meet me at the establishment to sign for the written violation notice. This chief inspector plans on returning this date with a written citation for management agreement 3.01, 3.02 cooperation, 4.16 illegal conduct, and 1.02 class of license. That's 1.02J. I apologize. I did return on the 24th, and my report for that date reads as follows. On the above date, this inspector went to Dietrich's Tavern at or about 2 p.m. and met with the manager on duty. The manager identified as Sheena Bajwa. Her name was listed as an active manager on the management agreement with the liquor board. I explained that the reason for my visit was to get a written violation notice signed by someone of authority for an incident that occurred the day before. I asked for any licensee was on the premises, and she said no, not at that time. I asked her to call any licensee and ask for their permission for her to sign, which she did, who afterwards, in situation, agreed to allow Mr. Bajwa to sign on behalf. The violations were, as I mentioned earlier. All right, see, and then I have photographs attached as well.
All right, thank you, Inspector Harris. Mr. Lyman, any questions?
Chief Inspector, can you tell me the date that the charging incidents happened? Was it on the 23rd or the 24th?
And the incident occurred on the 23rd. I returned on the 24th and issued the written violation.
Okay, so nothing happened on the 24th that you've charged as a violation, is that correct?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Nothing happened on January 24th that you have charged as a violation that
That's
my
correct. It
clients
all
are
occurred
facing
on the
tonight?
day before, 23rd.
Okay. And you're familiar with Rule 1.02 of the board's rules?
Yes, I am.
What's Rule 1.02 specify as is pertinent here?
Without having the book in front of me, it basically says that if you have a classification, you must act as that classification is indicated in rules, regulations, and laws. This particular establishment had a Class D license, which is commonly known as a bar tavern license, and they were only operating the packaged goods side of the store. The bar area was closed to customers, including myself. They also had signs in reference to the public bathroom being closed, which part of the D license, they must have an operating bathroom, things of that nature, Mr. Lyman.
Okay, so you observed a sign that said the bathrooms were closed on January 23rd, 2023?
I think that was the original incident a year before when I indicated to them that they had to operate as a tavern. I may have been a little confused with that. I was there a year prior because we found them operating under the same circumstances with the bar closed. And on that day, they had signs, several signs indicating that there was no public bathroom and the bathrooms were closed to the public.
Right, but that's irrelevant to what we're here to talk about tonight, correct?
Well, they were warned on that day that they had to, and they actually agreed to in a written notice back to us dated February 11th that they would. But yes, it's not relevant to this particular night or violation.
Okay. Now, I think you made reference to a Class D license under 1.02J, and I'll read Class D license. It says, Class D, beer and wine, or beer, wine, and liquor, those are in parentheses. Tavern, common limited to on-premises consumption only, or there's another selection which is Class D, beer, wine, and liquor, tavern on and off sales. So this violation that is being charged is in reference to the class of license. That's count number 4. Is that correct?
Yes, the gist of it is they were acting outside of the Class D tavern bar license.
Okay. And your interpretation, I think you said previously, is that if the establishment is open to the public, that they have to serve alcohol on sale for a Class D license. Is that your interpretation?
On a Class D license, yes.
Okay. So a Class D license can't select to not serve alcohol between, say, 10 and 3 during a day. Is that correct?
I didn't say that. And
so you'd agree that a licensee or an establishment could select the hours during which it served alcoholic beverages on site, correct?
I don't think I can answer that, without.
But do you have an opinion about it?
Yeah, my opinion is they could probably close for a short period if there was a reason. But 4 months.
What if they didn't want to serve alcohol or staff the bar between 10 and 3 p.m.? Do you have an opinion on that?
My opinion would be that if they're going to be a Class D, if they're licensed as a Class D, they should act as a Class D, which means that they should be open to the public. And they seem to only want to allow part of their business to act as a Class A and not a Class D. So I don't know if that clarifies my standing or not, but.
Well, I'm just trying to get an answer. Do you think it's acceptable, or would it be a violation that you could write up violation number 4 for class of license violation if the licensee told you we don't serve alcoholic beverages at our bar between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. every single day of the week? Is that a violation?
I can't answer that. I'd have to check on that particular situation, but this situation, they hadn't been open for 4 months.
So in this situation, you don't have any personal knowledge that they were open not as a bar for 4 months, do you? You have that through hearsay from what the clerk told you. Isn't that right?
That substantiated it, yes.
How's it substantiated?
Well, the man said he worked there for 4 months and the bar hadn't been open for 4 months.
That's right, but you weren't there during those 4 months, were you?
No, I was not.
Okay, so your allegation that they hadn't been operating as a bar for 4 months is only based on the word of this employee. Is that right?
Not only, but yes.
Oh, what else is it based on?
Well, one of my inspectors informed me that he had been in there and the bar had been closed at that time, but he only visited the place for a short period.
So when was your inspector there?
You know, I don't have that date. This was just during conversation. I will tell you that I went to 14 establishments that were on a list of establishments that were Class D, that were operating more or less out of class, and this was only one of 14. So it wasn't that I went there particularly for this establishment. I checked all 14 of those establishments.
You did that on the 23rd?
No, it was over about a 2-week period.
Okay. But you only visited this establishment on January 23rd, 24th, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You weren't there in October, November, or December, right?
Yes.
So it would surprise you if I told you that my clients are willing to testify that the bar had been open during those 4 prior months. Would that be surprising to you? Or
It would be a surprise looking at the appearance of it. They had a lot of alcohol boxed and stacked behind the bar where it would be almost impossible to walk up to the back of the bar. And they also had no bar stools in the front.
So let me ask you this.
Sure.
When you attended your inspections at these 14 other establishments, did you consume any alcoholic beverages at those establishments?
No.
Did you order alcoholic beverages at those establishments?
No.
How did you check on their compliance?
Walked in, did a visual check. They were all found to be open and operating except for Dietrich's.
Okay. Did you check Fist Paws?
I did.
Okay. And were they open and operating with on-sale service?
Yes, they were. They have a wine tasting bar. They had their bathroom, which I had mentioned in a previous report that they had closed to the public, that they had removed those signs and opened it up to the public. So they were in compliance.
Okay. And over this period, this is about 2 weeks, beginning approximately a week into January, is that correct?
Approximately, yes.
Okay. Can you explain what the illegal conduct is that's charged in count number 3?
Yeah, the illegal conduct was a combination of all of everything that took place on that night. There was no manager or licensee on the premises. There was the fact that it was locked up. There was no access to the public, to the bar, or to the bathrooms from the bar side. General violations.
Can you list anything specifically that happened on the 23rd that was contrary to any federal, state, or local statute, law, rule, or regulation?
Well, the fact that they did not have an open bar and they should have.
Okay, but they should have under the board's rules, correct?
Right.
But there isn't any federal, state, or law or statute that they were in violation of. Isn't that true?
I can't say that.
Okay. Was there anything that was objectionable or against the public peace?
Not against the public peace, but welfare, perhaps.
How about the public safety?
I'd say the fact that they weren't open to the public and didn't allow them to use the bathrooms in the bar side, perhaps, but.
Okay, I thought the bathrooms didn't relate to this.
Well, actually, it wasn't the bathrooms. The bathrooms did relate to this. It was the signage on the bathrooms and on the doors that said no public bathroom. That incident occurred a year prior.
Right, but that's not charged tonight. We've already been through that, right?
Well, it's all incorporated in this visit.
Well, the bathrooms were open during this visit, weren't they?
No.
Well, why isn't it charged and described in your report then?
It's part of the illegal conduct, Mr. Lyman.
I thought the illegal conduct you cited about the bathrooms had to do from January 2022 that we all decided early on was not involved in the charging issues tonight. Is that wrong?
Yes, that's wrong.
Okay,
What I
so-
said was, in reference to the 2022 incident, was that there was signage, several signs up saying no public bathroom. That was not the case when I visited this time. They did take those signs down, but the bathrooms weren't available to the public. The front door was still locked. There was no entrance from outside into the bar area.
Let me ask you this. Did you go and try to open the bathroom doors when you were here on the 23rd, January 23rd this year?
No, I did not.
Okay, so you didn't check the bathrooms, right?
No, I did not.
Okay, so really that's not a part of this at all, okay? And you're just stretching to say that there's some public safety issue related to the bathrooms from January 23rd, 2023, right?
No, I'm not. I don't feel I'm stretching because I was told that that bar area was closed to the public. There was no drinks available, right? I could get something on the packaged goods side. So as far as I was concerned, everything in that 2/3 of that building, which was be known as the bar area, was not available to the public as it should have been.
Okay, and that's injurious to the public safety, in your view?
I guess that would be a matter of interpretation.
Okay, and is that injurious to the public health?
I'd have to say the same thing.
Okay. How about the public welfare?
Well, if you're licensed to be an establishment and open to the public, and then you're not, I think that it does pertain to the public welfare.
How about the public quiet or morals? Is there anything injurious by this gentleman telling you you couldn't be served a drink at the bar on the 23rd?
Probably not.
Okay. In fact, it wasn't even your intention to drink a drink at the bar, was it?
No.
You told the employee that you wanted to buy a drink, but you didn't ever want to consume the drink, correct?
No, when I asked him if I could get a drink,
Okay.
and he said no.
And the same thing happened the next day, didn't it? When the manager was on site?
No, I did not ask him if I could have a drink.
You didn't ask the manager whether you could get a drink?
No, I explained to the manager at that time that the bar had to remain open so we could get a drink, so the public could get a drink.
Okay. And did
I
she
didn't say I wanted a drink.
And did she say the bar was open then?
Yes.
Okay. And was the bar open then?
Yes.
What time of day was that?
Bear with me 1 second. Allow me to get my violation book, and hopefully I can give you that time, Mr. Lyman.
And Mr. Lyman, we're talking about January 24th, right?
That's correct.
I don't have a time on my notes.
It's in your report. It says 2 p.m. Is that wrong or right?
Which report are you referring to?
January 24th. On the above date, the inspector went to the Dietrich Tavern on or
okay.
about 2 p.m.
Okay.
and met with the manager on duty. Is that wrong
Okay.
or right?
No, that's right. I did not notice that, but yes, that's right.
Okay, and the
If I
bar was
put it
open
in
at
my
2 p.m.
report,
the
that's
very
correct.
next day. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did you check the bathrooms at that time?
No, I did not.
Can you explain what was lacking in the cooperation that Count 2 has been charged for?
The cooperation charge is actually the fact that they did not abide by the rules and regulations, especially after being warned and given an opportunity 1 year prior.
So they've been warned a year prior, you came back a year later, and you wrote them up for cooperation for not having a drink service be available on the 23rd of January 2023. Is that correct?
Not in those words, but generally, yes.
Was the staff on site cooperative with you?
Yes.
That's for both days, correct? 23rd and 24th?
Yes.
I don't have any further questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lyman. Mr. Chairman, do you have any questions?
What are your bar hours?
Oh, this is just for Inspector Harris, real quick.
Oh, no, I
And
know.
then we'll
I'm
turn
sorry.
it over. We'll turn it
Okay.
over to Mr. Lyman in a minute.
I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions of Inspector Harris?
No questions.
Commissioner Snoops? All right. With that, Mr. Lyman, we will turn it over to you to present your client's case. Obviously, you can proffer testimony, combination of both. We'll turn it over to you, okay?
Thank you. It'll probably be a combination of both.
Sure.
We'll admit to violation number 1. There was a problem. There was no manager on site. And let me tell the board about what happened in this circumstance. Ms. Bawa is seated here in the center. She was the manager on duty. She'd worked a long shift. She began at about 9 a.m. in the morning. And this is on the 23rd, the day of the initial violation. So she called, he's known as Mohammed, but Mr. Farham, who's a part-time employee. He's come in only very briefly, as I understand it, for a number of months. I don't know if it's 4 months entirely or whatever. But he was called because they wanted to make sure that there were 2 staff members on site. Ms. Bawa made a mistake. I don't think that she was fully informed about the board's requirement that a manager be on site or a licensee at all times. And she was done for the day. She needed to go home and attend to some personal affairs, and so she left the premises at about 5 p.m., she indicated to me. And Mr. Harris appeared, Chief Inspector Harris, and as his report says, he asked to be served a drink. And Mohammed, Mr. Farham, was cooperative, but explained to him that the bar was closed because they didn't have staff to operate the bar. The outdoor entrance to the bar area was locked, but the indoor entrance to the bar area from the liquor store area was not locked. Mr. Chief Inspector Harris is correct about this interaction. You've heard me beat on him a little bit on some of the details here that I think are pertinent, but fundamentally what happened was that there was not a manager on site, and there should have been a manager on site. My clients are willing to admit that violation. Mr. Farham, however, volunteered some information that was not accurate, not correct. It's been relied upon by Mr. Harris, as you heard, that the bar had not been open in approximately 4 months. Mr. Harris does not have any personal knowledge of that. He has hearsay evidence of that only. He has what Mr. Farham communicated to him that night, and he has something that one of the inspectors told him at some other time that we don't know the time frame of that. What we have is a situation where Mr. Farham is a part-time employee. He's been fired. He refused to come and meet with me to try to prepare for this hearing. He refused to come tonight to explain his version of whatever happened. And so the licensee is left with their hands tied here. The licensee is left, they're stuck. They're stuck with having the chief inspector on the warpath over 3 violations and mixing up his recollections of what happened a year prior when he came in and saw that the bathrooms weren't open. And he's upset because his interpretation is that if you have a Class D license, you should not be allowed to close your bar to the public. And I don't think that that is the right policy that this board should enforce. This board should ask licensees to responsibly handle the on-sale sale of alcoholic beverages. And if they don't have the staff, then they shouldn't be serving alcoholic beverages on site. If the board wants to make a policy that you have to lock your doors to the public and not be open at all, I think that the board needs to be clear about that policy. Maybe we'll get an answer tonight, depending on what the board thinks about whether Chief Inspector Harris's interpretation of the board's rules is correct. But I read you what the Class D license allows. It allows on sale and off sale. It does not specify that a business operator, that a business owner can't make a decision. We're going to open to sell alcoholic beverages to the public at 10 a.m. from our packaged good section of our Class D license establishment, but we are not going to staff our bar until, for example, 3 p.m. or maybe 5 p.m. or at 7 p.m. on a Monday night, just like the 23rd was, when the manager needed to go home for personal reasons. Now, it's up to the board to decide what its policies are going to be. And this is a fight that I think probably has been brewing between Chief Inspector Harris's interpretation and the actual board's rules for some time. I don't know if the board has instructed Chief Inspector Harris to operate this way and to check for Class D compliance, but I think that there needs to be a reasonable policy by the board to allow licensees to close their bars if and when they deem it's appropriate, given their customer volume, given their operational capacity, given their employees. Now, my clients understand that Chief Inspector Harris was here. He was in their establishment a year prior, warning them that they needed to make sure that the bar was operational, that it correctly operated. If you look at Dietrich's Tavern, and I apologize, I don't have any pictures, but Chief Inspector Harris will tell you, they have a legitimate bar here, okay? There's lots of Class D licenses where they're skimping by on having a bar or having on-sale service. Dietrich's Tavern is facing some difficult decisions as a result of COVID. Business-wise, they've got almost zero bar business, and they've had it since they were ordered by the health department to close their bar. The records in the file at Dietrich's Tavern explained that they were forced by the health department to close their bar, and that was back in prior to 2021 and 2020, and by 2022, they elected to try to reopen the bar. They've tried to staff up and keep the bar open when they have customers and demand for it, but they don't want to be wasting money by paying a bartender to sit, and it's hard to recruit a bartender when you don't have any customers in the bar. And so they're faced with a tough choice. Maybe they will downgrade the license. I point this out that item number 7 says that they already have a Class A license. I think that's just an error, an issue. It also says their address is 354 Mountain Road, Suite 1, Pasadena, which it isn't. I point this out because mistakes get made. Okay? Mistakes got made by the manager who was on duty that night. She left somebody in charge that shouldn't have been left in charge. Mr. Farham, although he was cooperative with the chief inspector, I think he made the right choice. I think that if he wasn't authorized to serve any drinks at the bar, then he shouldn't have said, "I'm going to serve you a drink at the bar." I think that that employee, he made the right choice in that instance. I don't think he made the right choice by refusing to come and participate in this so that the board could have a good understanding of what really happened. Because frankly, I get along okay with Chief Inspector Harris, but I don't know that he's been treating this establishment correctly by charging 4 violations here. I think cooperation is thin. I think you heard from him that there was cooperation. I think you heard from him that he's got a bias. And his bias is that when he looked at this establishment a year prior, he had issues with the bathrooms being closed, and he had issues with the cooperation in the interim because he believed, and earnestly believed at that they hadn't been operating the bar for 4 months. And that's simply not true. That's not the case. My clients will testify to that in a moment. Well, we've got a situation where we've also got charged with illegal conduct. And here, remember, I'm the lawyer, but nevertheless, if we read illegal conduct, it says no licensee shall commit or allow the commission on his premises of any act which shall be contrary to any federal, state, or local statute, law, rules, or regulations, or ordinance against the public peace, safety, health, welfare, quiet, or morals. Illegal conduct is supposed to protect weak people in our society. Illegal conduct prohibitions have to do with laws that are supposed to be for the maintenance of public safety, health, welfare, quiet, and morals. They're regulations that have nothing to do with whether you can buy a drink at 7 p.m. at night on a Monday night. Shouldn't have been charged, shouldn't be on the docket. And the class of license, you heard the preview on that right out of the gate. You should have employees following their jobs. You should have licensees who are able to run and manage their business in accordance with what the market is demanding of their businesses and in accordance with this board's rules and regulations. If the board wants to enter into trying to regulate case by case, without bias, without undue influence, the hours, making sure that you can buy a drink at a bar or a bar section of a Class D license anytime the doors are unlocked to the public, I guess the board can try to do that. But we're here because my clients are alleged to have violated that rule that appears nowhere in the board's published rules and regulations. We have a policy that's been announced by the chief inspector. Maybe it's the board's policy. If it is, then the board needs to inform my clients of that tonight. I just asked Mr. Sarkaria, he's my licensee, if he has anything further to add.
I think you have already said everything, so
Okay.
I don't have anything.
Let me ask you this. Can you tell the board what your bar operation hours are typically?
Typically, we serve from 3 p.m. to around 6:30, 7,
Around
depending
7 or
upon
depending
if we
Cus-
have
yeah, business.
any customers,
Okay.
any business on that side.
And now tell us what your hours of operation are for the whole establishment.
We are open from 8 a.m. till
8 a.m. to 11
11
p.m.
11 p.m.
Monday to Friday.
Monday through Friday and Saturday.
and
Saturday we close
Friday and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m.
at midnight. Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell the board if you've had any impacts on your bar business through COVID and what the current situation is?
Yeah, since we used to have good business on bar side before COVID. So after COVID, the business completely died down. So there were nobody coming in. So we were not able to retain any bartender to serve people. So we still try to serve them, but it's not. There's no business.
Is that when you close the bar?
I mean, the bar is not
Yep.
closed. We
Bar-
always tell
yeah.
them if you guys come in the evening, we can always serve you guys. So it's not closed. They assume that there's nobody in the bar, so it's closed. So we obviously you can every time you come in, we will have somebody to serve you in the evening.
Mr. Lyman, you mentioned about the health department closing down the bar.
Mr. Sarkaria, do you have a recollection of that? I believe that was in one of the communications I read in the board's record that you wrote to the board and indicated that the health department had previously closed your bar because of COVID.
Yeah, that was because of COVID. Yeah,
I don't think they ever closed it.
I don't remember anything other than.
I'm not aware
COVID.
of that. I don't think they ever closed it. Yeah.
I think there were several changes made that the health department made. I don't think they closed any
No,
bars.
they didn't.
I
They
think
made it
was
more
just
flexible.
due to the COVID,
They made it a lot more
closed
flexible
all the bars.
to sell alcohol as opposed to limit alcohol. So
That's fair enough. I thought that bars were not among the critical infrastructure that was open, along with
No, it was
doctors'
for a
offices
few
and
weeks.
health departments and
I think
hospitals.
inspector was there and we was having some kind of construction going on the backside. So we told him that it's closed for 2 weeks. You know, yeah. So
If I
that was the
misspoke,
only
I
reason,
apologize. It was
but
not
the-
my intent to rehash whatever maybe happened. My impression and inclination, what I was trying to represent to the board, was that COVID has basically dreadfully impacted the bar business, and they were unable to persevere and maintain any regular customers, and they were unable to maintain bar staff, and that's been a challenge for them in trying to either reinstate that business or perhaps change the model.
okay. So if I left here today and went to Dietrich's, could I get a drink tonight?
Yeah, sure, we got somebody to serve you here.
Depends what time you get there.
I make sure there's always somebody to serve in the evening right now because I'm there in the morning, so I always have someone in the evening.
So the bar hours are, again,
Right now, we're doing starting after 3 p.m. and I try, the manager is there almost in the evening every day, but no one shows up after 7, so sometimes we close the door if, It's like 3 to 7 is like active hours, so for the bar, someone can come in and ask for a drink.
so it seems like it's flexible.
Yeah. So
Pretty
if
much what
we,
you're saying.
if the manager is there, if someone who can serve the, drinks, like they're, then they can leave the bar door open until maybe 10 o'clock.
Okay, but I'm just curious where you would sit.
We have a bar area, we have, stools there, so, in
Okay.
the bar.
I'm just looking, I have some pictures here, and it's, looks pretty busy.
May I see the pictures?
I mean, it was just some liquor sitting there because of the business. We don't have any business, so sometimes we have a
It looks like a
delivery day.
storage room, that's all.
It was just like a delivery day when we have a delivery and then they leave it on the bar side, so.
Mr. Chairman, are these the pictures you're looking at?
From 2022, I
Yeah, they're
believe.
22. Yeah, they're from 2022, excuse me. Okay. Never mind, you've
Are
got
those
those
part of the
numbers.
record in this case?
I don't think so. I don't have them.
We still had stools there, but they were on the side.
Hold on a
since we
second.
didn't have-
I'm
No,
just I'm
no.
trying to understand whether
They're
or not
they're
they've
not
been.
part of the record in this case.
Can we make them part of the record, please? The photographs from 2022?
You want the 2022 records to be part of the, or photos to be part of the record?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
If the chairman is looking at them, I would like them to be
Sure,
part of the
we
record.
can make those part of the record.
The stools, table, we pay.
No more questions.
Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions?
No question.
And then when we summon on the table, we pay. Stool, we pay.
Commissioner Stoops, any questions?
So go ahead. Do you have anything else, Mr. Lyman?
I just want to be clear that no photographs other than photographs that were taken in January 2022 have been made part of the record.
That's correct.
Okay.
I have nothing further. You've heard my arguments. If you have any other questions of the licensees or the manager, I'm happy to have them address the board. And if they have anything further they'd like to share about this circumstance or incident, then now's your chance to explain your situation to the board.
Actually, we have two managers right now, so I'm usually there in the morning, and the other manager was on the vacation, so I was having like long hours every day. And my daughter was not feeling well, so I had to leave early that day. So I think I left before 7, and then Mr. Wayne, Harris, he came in, and he was pretty new. The employee we have is like not permanent employee, so I don't know why he said that the bar was closed, because we never ever had a discussion with him that, he always like, you guys, when you come in, if, we have someone to serve, we can always serve. And then the other thing, as Mr. Wayne mentioned, that we have the signs like our, bathrooms closed sign, that is only on the store side. We don't have any sign on the bar side, because those are open for the bar side, bar customers. We don't allow too many customers to use the bathroom, the public, because it's a mess for, usually. So that is I don't know why he noticed that there was too many signs of bathroom closed. The only sign we have is on the store side, not on the bar side. So I really don't know exactly, because I exactly know where we have the signs, and that was the only reason I had to go that day. My daughter was kind of not feeling well, so I thought maybe I could come back, and and wasn't aware that if I wasn't there, so I should have been close the store. So I thought I have 2 employees that they can close the store. So I know I should have known that, but I was kind of like having a long hour, so I think that's when he came in, and then I did explain it to him that the other manager is on the vacation, so it's just hard for me to, just stay here for, all days from opening to close. But I always try. I was there almost sometimes 9 or 10 o'clock, and usually we did even change the timings because of the manager. Sometimes we used to close at 9 or 10 o'clock because I had to go home, sometimes. So I'm fully, I think I understand that I shouldn't, happen, but we should always have been someone there, either manager or, but it was, for some personal reasons, I had to go that day.
Excuse us.
Sorry about the delay.
Sorry. Just want to make sure we get this right for the moment. I'm just going to throw out some general comments, and then if the other commissioners want to say anything, that's fine also. It seems to me that there's no question, Mr. Lyman, about the management agreement violation. You've admitted to that, and that's fine. I appreciate that. The cooperation, I'm going to look at that and probably pass at this moment. With regard to the illegal conduct, perhaps the same thing. I'm not sure. I'm on the fence there. And as far as the class of license, you brought up some good points with that, and maybe something that we're going to delve into down the road with regard to the Class D. So at this point, those are my comments, and we'll have a motion hopefully shortly.
Commissioner Duffy, do you have any comments?
I totally concur with the chair in reference to cooperation, illegal conduct, as well as the class of license in reference to the explanation that was given by the counselor in reference to the tavern license, Class D license. I totally understand that, and I concur with the chairman.
Commissioner Stoops?
I basically concur also. I think the Class D license probably needs a lot more definition in it. Just the whole, it's not reasonable to be open from 8 to midnight at a bar, or whatever it may be, you know, if you're operating a business. I don't think you want anybody drinking that much.
All right, well, at this time, if the commissioners have made their comments, anybody would like to put forth a motion, now would be an appropriate time.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we find Dietrich's Tavern in violation of the management agreement, and I impose a $250 fine plus court costs, and I look for a second.
I second the motion.
The motion is seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank you.
Commissioners.
Go.
Thank you, Chief Inspector Harris.
Thank you.
Take care.
Seeing no
Everybody have a
further,
good evening.
seeing no further business, the hearing is concluded.
Yeah, you got my email? That lasts like 20. We've got robust spam filters. Good to see you. You still doing your radio thing? Aren't you a radio guy?
But I do.